Okay, everyone, great job, and thank you for your efforts on Unit 2. And this is our first look into Unit 3. Unit 3 has a lot to do with linear equations and graphing and slope and whatnot. For this first part of the unit, we're just going to take a look at the rectangular coordinate system. The rectangular coordinate system is basically, we have the x and the y-axis, and you all know what coordinates are. They're points. We're going to use this to graph all sorts of things throughout this semester, but right now we're going to take a look at lines. What I want you to know about the coordinate system is it's broken up into quadrants. So here we have quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, and quadrant 4. So we use Roman numerals. My Roman numeral game is weak, but yeah, there we go. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And what I have here, we're going to talk a lot about linear equations, and that's what this is right here. But what I have here is a linear equation, and we have a t-chart here. And since there's no restrictions on the domain and the range of a linear equation, which we'll talk a lot more about that later, domain and range, we're going to use this t-chart to plug in some values to find out what this line would look like if we graphed it. And again, since there's no restrictions on the domain and range, I can pick any number for x and y that I want. The idea is I'll pick an x value, any x value I want really, and then I'll solve for y using the solving steps that we did in the last lesson. So let's pick some values for x and some values for y and kind of get an idea of what this line looks like. So I'm going to pick, let's do 0 for x. We'll do another point that has 0 for y. And then let's do x value of -1, and then a y value of 1. And let's do just one more x value of 1. So what we're going to have here is 5 total points. In each of these points, we picked one, either the x or the y value. Remember, when graphing lines, the x is left and right, it's horizontal. If it's negative it's to the left, and if it's positive to the right, and the y is up and down. So for our first point, with an x value of 0, I would get, let's plug this in and see where this point would lie. I would get 2 times 0 plus 3 times y equals 6. So when I simplify this, well, the 2 times 0 goes away because that's being added, and so if we're adding 0, that's not going to change anything. And then we're left with 3y equals 6. And then if I divide by 3, my y value is 2. So my first coordinate that we're going to graph a point of has an x coordinate of 0 and a y coordinate of 2. So let's go ahead and fill out the t-chart here with the 2. And let's go ahead and plot that point. So my x is 0, my y is 2. That means I'm not moving to the left or right, and I'm moving up 2 spaces, and there's my point. Okay, I'm going to erase this. Now here's our equation. Here's the points that we had. So it looks like the next value that we're going to plug in is a y value, and that y value is going to be 0. So if I have 2x plus 3, we'll replace the y with 0 equals 6. Well then, this time, we'll simplify, this term's going to go away because when we're adding 0, that's not really adding anything. So I get 2x equals 6, and then I will divide by 2, and x equals 3, and then my coordinate is 3 for x, 0 for y. So that's right there. So when we graph that point, let's see, positive 3 for x, so 3 spaces to the right, 0 spaces up, so there's my next point. We're end up, since we have 5 points on our t-chart, we're going to have 5 points on our graph. And we're going to see, because it's a linear equation, this should make a straight line. All right. next value I'm gonna plug in is an x value of -1. Go ahead and erase this here. So if I did 2 times -1 plus 3y equals 6, well, 2 times -1, that's -2, plus 3y equals 6. So to get y by itself, I'm gonna add the 2, 3y equals 8, divide by 3, and y equals 8/3. And that's a fraction, but that's okay. What it means is, well, let's see when we graph it. So 8/3 for the y value. So that next coordinate has an x value of -1 and a y value of 8/3, okay? So when I graph that point, the x value of -1 says to move to the left -1, and the y value of 8/3, now keep in mind, 8/3 as a mixed number would be 2 and 2/3. So when I graph that, instead of going, I'm not gonna go up 2, I'm gonna go up a little more than that, but not quite 3, because 2 and 2/3 is more than 2 and less than 3. Would it be closer to 3 or closer to 2? Yep, you guessed it, a little closer to 3, so it's gonna be like, oh, right about there, to the left one, and up 2 and 2/3 more, or 8/3, okay? All right, we gotta look at our points here. They look to be linear, they look to be in a line, that's good. All right, and let's see, the next point is a y value. So for y value, I have 2x plus 3 times 1 equals 6. Okay, so now I know the y value is 1 for this next point. I need to find out what the x value is I'm gonna solve. So 3 times 1 is 3. So if I wanna get rid of that 3, I can subtract 3 from both sides, and I have 2x equals 3, and then I'll divide by 2, and I get x equals 3/2, right? So now I have this x value of 3/2 and a y value of 1. All right, so I'll go ahead and add that x value to the t-chart. Okay, so if I go to the right 3/2, well, that's really like 1.5 or 1.5, right? And then I'll go up 1. So I go to the right 1.5 and up 1, and there's my next point. Notice all the points that I've made, they're linear, right? They form a straight line, okay? So because this is a linear equation, all right? Last one, x value of 1. I'm gonna go ahead and erase this work here, all right? X value of 1, so 2 times 1 plus 3y equals 6. So let's see, 2 times 1 is 2. Now we need to solve for this y, so I'm going to subtract 2, and I get 3y equals 4, divide by 3, and I get y equals 4/3. So my x value is 1, my y value is 4/3. So when I graph this one, I'll go to the right 1 and up 4/3. How far is that? That would be 1 and 1/3, right? That's the same as 4/3. So it's up 1 and just a smidge more. So it's like right about there. And notice again, all of our points are right on they're linear, right? It's a linear equation. If they don't make a straight line, chances are something's a little off. Maybe your graph's a little off. It's always nice to use graph paper with this, but maybe you made a miscalculation when solving for one of the variables. So let's summarize. The rectangular coordinate system, we have, an XY graph. We have 4 quadrants. Quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, quadrant 4. The x-axis is horizontal, and it's the first letter of the coordinate, the first number, x here on the left, and the y-axis is vertical, and that one would be the right coordinate, the second coordinate, right? Oh, and I'll finish off this t-chart with the 4/3 here, and we have our t-chart, and we use that to help us graph our linear equation. Thank you. We got another one coming.